And top of the morning, one and all. Hello, hello, hello. Chris Salcedo Show is rocking and rolling. Glad you have been smart enough to make us part of your day, I guess. There's a lot going on, and there's nothing really. There's one overarching story today that will probably dominate the broadcast, and that's this intelligence memo. There is some fallout from the Trump State of the Union. Many are already saying it wasn't as big as Obama's State of the Union. It's like, oh, it's the biggest State of the Union since 2010. So it all depends on how you look at it. That we have the most popular president as far as viewership goes since 2010. You can look at it that way. You can look at it that every president starts out of the gate with high numbers and then kind of tapers off as Americans figure out what that president's about. Donald Trump won't be satisfied. I think the president's going to see those numbers. What, I didn't beat Obama? What? He's going to work on fixing that the next time. Not that that's really important. It's just something I happen to notice because the comparisons are being made. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Let me ask you a question. Who's in charge at the Justice Department? Really, who's in charge? Now, the placard on the office says Attorney General Jeff Sessions. But whose name is out there? Who's calling the shots? It seems that Jeff Sessions is window dressing. And Rod Rosenstein, a deep state implant, someone who I believe is a bad actor, he's calling the shots. Let me give you an example. This 4-page memo, which reveals improper behavior, potential illegal behavior by members of the FBI and people in the Department of Justice. The excuse that the FBI has now come out and said they don't want to release it is because it'll do damage. Before it was, oh, we're worried about sources and methods and you're compromising national security. Well, that's changed now. Now that all those I's have been dotted and T's have been crossed many times over. Now all of a sudden, well, you know what? If the American people knew how much of pieces of garbage we were, it would undermine these institutions. And it's the institutions that are the most important thing. Now, I want you guys to put your thinking caps on for a minute. Where are we getting all the information? Meaning the inspectors general and our elected members of Congress. Speaking of Congress, after we got off the phone yesterday, slight detour here, folks. Don't worry, I haven't lost my place. When we got off the phone with Congressman Brian Babin, as he was on a train to a Republican retreat, that train was in an accident. I had more than a few of you calling me up yesterday saying, hey, that train was in an accident. Yeah, I know. Some folks called me. Some folks emailed me. Anyhow, I called up to find out how the congressman was. He's fine. But somebody lost their life. A garbage truck was on the tracks ahead of a 70-mile-an-hour train. Question. One of the most heavily guarded trains there is because it is full of, well, basically half of Congress. How does a trash truck get on the tracks in front of that? And nobody sees it, nobody moves it, nobody signals the train to stop. How does that happen? The questions are now abounding. How does that happen? Person inside the truck is dead. I'm sure an autopsy will be done. Maybe not. We'll find out if this guy was dead or alive before the car wreck. We don't know. Now, the reason why I don't believe there's a conspiracy theory there is because I think there were some other people in the truck that some of the doctors who were members of Congress reverted back to doctors and treated those in the truck that needed the most help. It could have stalled. This could be completely innocent. But many people are asking questions. How does this happen? Perhaps if the FBI leadership and the Department of Justice leadership weren't so consumed with covering their tracks from what they did in the last administration, they could actually get back to doing their duty. So that brings me full circle back to where we were talking about that these lawmakers have decided that we should see this information because it's so troubling. So yesterday the FBI comes out, and I've got the story here, and we'll play it from Fox News, or part of the story anyway. And this infiltrator by the name of Rod Rosenstein, who was responsible for the Bob Mueller investigation, who recommended to Donald Trump that he fire James Comey, and then after the firing of James Comey was the one that said, wait a minute, are you obstructing justice? I got to appoint a special counsel. Rod Rosenstein signed that memo recommending the dismissal of James Comey, and then turned around and then sicked Bob Mueller onto Donald Trump. Yesterday it leaked that Rod Rosenstein was asked by Donald Trump, hey, are you on my team? Are you on the Trump team? Seeing as how I made you Deputy Attorney General. And that is according to leaked information. Guess what? From Rod Rosenstein. Now, what I find fascinating is that nobody in the FBI and nobody inside of Congress is leaking the contents of that 4-page memo. Did you guys notice that? That if it reflects negatively on Rod Rosenstein or the upper echelon of the FBI, or sheds more light on possibly elected members of Congress who all colluded and conspired to create this false narrative around Donald Trump and Russia collusion to cover up Democrats' collusion with Russia. I don't know. This really smells fishy. So here comes Rod Rosenstein and Christopher Wray, another Donald Trump appointee, saying we can't release this. Christopher Wray, who saw the memo, came back and told Andrew McCabe, you got to go. You're gone. There's no way. Once this comes out, you're going to be the biggest liability this agency has ever. And trust me, folks, he's been the biggest liability the FBI has had for years. Now that we start to find out what's coming out about him. But I think this is a fair question to ask. Who's running the Department of Justice? At this point, it's Rod Rosenstein, the current FBI director, and where's Jeff Sessions? Don't forget, it was also Rod Rosenstein who seemed to orchestrate the recusal to get Jeff Sessions out of the way, effectively making him the Attorney General. And really the biggest thing going on right now, the investigation of Hillary, the investigation of Uranium One, anything having to do with Russia and the Democrats' malfeasance, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, has recused himself from. And then, of course, the investigation into Russia-Trump collusion, which after nearly 2 years of investigation still has no proof of any collusion. So this seems to be a very well orchestrated, I don't want to say coup. How about a well orchestrated scheme by Rod Rosenstein to get the actual Attorney General out of the way, to in effect put himself in charge so he can cover his tracks, cover the tracks of the upper echelon of the FBI. There's only one problem. Other people in the FBI and the CIA and, the actual patriots, they continue to talk to lawmakers and they continue to talk to the inspectors general. So sooner or later, this is all going to come out. Rod Rosenstein is a bad actor. James Comey was a bad actor. Andrew McCabe was a bad actor. Peter Strzok, I can't believe that guy's still employed. Can you? Bruce Orr, Rubinsky, all of these people throughout the Department of Justice and the FBI, this cabal of individuals who fixed it, who rigged it. I was watching Gingrich last night. He was on Fox. And he said, there was a government that rigged or tried to rig the U.S. election. It wasn't the Russians. It was the American government under Barack Obama. And I thought, I said, wow, that's powerful. And it's turning out to be true. And this is what these folks are guarding against because, and here is the operating principle they were going under. The American people are stupid. Donald Trump is a menace. He's not part of the club. He'll be ruinous to the country. Rod Rosenstein probably thought he was saving the country. We know that was the mindset of Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. And if I'm throwing out names that you guys don't know, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were FBI personnel. One was a special agent in charge of not only interrogating Michael Flynn, but also in charge of letting Hillary Clinton off the hook. Upper echelon leadership. Lisa Page was just his mistress, an FBI lawyer who he was stepping out on his wife with. So those guys are still employed with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I wonder who's covering for them. Or I wonder who's keeping them very close so they can't get out and talk to anybody. Because the minute they lose the protection of the FBI, if they're fired, guess who wants to talk to them? Guess who's going to subpoena them? Guess who wants to get them up on Capitol Hill? So right now, there's some sort of protection at the FBI from members of Congress for Peter Strzok. I know that there are members of Congress that want to talk to him. And I know that they've talked to him in a classified setting. But as James Comey appeared before Congress after he was fired in an open session, Peter Strzok would be able to do much of the same. And of course, Rod Rosenstein can't allow that to happen now, can he? Because Peter Strzok knows too much. So what I believe is going on here is Rod Rosenstein, who is a bad actor. Rod Rosenstein, who has been, I think, one of the key players and one of the key promoters of undermining the Trump presidency, is now scrambling to cover his tracks. And the Democrat Party is trying to help him. So they come out with a statement saying, this report has some omissions in it. It's not exactly true. Well, what part of it is true? Notice there wasn't an out-and-out denial of everything in this report. They can't. They can't deny it. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. We'll talk about that today. Again, fallout from the State of the Union speech and some criminally stupid people over at MSNBS. One in particular. You guys know the name Joy Reid? This waste, what she did to that black family who lost their little girls to illegal alien criminals, MS-13, what she said about that incident will basically tell you why you don't watch MSNBS. Back in a minute, the Chris Salcedo Show on The Voice. Welcome back. It's Chris Salcedo Show, and I'm happy you've tuned in, everybody. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. There's some good news on the economy, too. I probably should get some of this stuff out. Now, look, I want to give you guys the difference between ADP and the government numbers. ADP is a private sector payroll company that gives a certain readout on hiring. And it's typically more optimistic than is the actual government numbers. And I'm not commenting what that means one way or the other. I'm just saying that when I tell you the numbers that I'm about ready to tell you, I want you to understand that these won't be the numbers the government come up with on Friday, tomorrow. But they're good. And what we do see is sometimes proportional ratio, meaning if ADP sees jobs beating expectations, we'll see the federal numbers beating expectations as well. Payrolls by ADP were estimated to grow at 185,000 for the month of January. And typically January is a soft month, but they were still forecasting 185,000. According to ADP, 234,000 jobs. So, what is that? 50,000 more jobs than was projected, according to private company ADP. So it's great news there. So we'll see on Friday if that trend actually holds. But it's a good positive indicator. More jobs being created. The stock market ended. Now there was a day or two there where the stock market pulled back, and all the analysts I saw, and I didn't get a chance to tune into Lance's show to see what he thought about this. But most people I saw said it was a healthy pullback. It's profit taking. After a massive run up in the stock market, folks wanted to take a little bit of a breather, take out some, cash out a little bit, get some cash reserves, and then reinvest and go back and then keep on going up. So we got this couple of days of pullback, and they were pretty big days. I mean, there was one, I think it was Wednesday, where 300-point drop in the stock market. It was, I don't want to indicate to you it was chump change. It was significant, but at any rate, yesterday the markets corrected the last day of January, and so they ended up January on a positive note. And the Dow Jones 30 Industrials now is on the greatest win streak that we have seen since 1959. Since 1959, ending the month on a positive note. Barack Obama didn't do that. Barack Obama didn't build that. Let me be clear. Barack Obama didn't build that. Donald Trump built that. I don't know if we had this yesterday. Did we put this up, Russell? We gave a name to his State of the Union speech. Americans are dreamers too speech. That's what we're going to call it. Americans are dreamers too. That's message.
Appropriate.
Yeah. No, it's. I think that was the line of the night by the president. Don't you? Now
absolutely.
The most impactful story of the night, and there were so many, was the North Korean defector, the guy who escaped the brutal regime, holding up his crutches, that moment. Oh, my gosh. If that didn't give you a lump somewhere between chin and belly button, you're not human. So I was looking on Twitter this morning, and Donald Trump Jr., and I retweeted this. He has a still photo of that Mr. Ho holding up his crutches in defiance of the brutal communist North Korean regime. And Donald Trump Jr. observes, hey, that's what real resistance looks like. So, at any rate, that's been retweeted. You want to follow the Chris Salcedo Show on social media, just go to ksevradio.com. I was reading that, by the way, you folks on the Vida television network. You folks who want to check out our website and get all the social media contacts, go to ksevradio.com. You'll find Facebook. You'll find email. You'll find Twitter is there as well. And you can actually see that picture that Donald Trump Jr. put out there. There was another story that the president told yesterday, and it was about the story about these two little girls who were walking home on one of the little girls' birthday, and they never made it home. Illegal alien gang members, MS-13, they brutally murdered, slaughtered these black little girls. And Laura Ingraham, our very own Laura Ingraham, had Robert Mickens, the father of one of the girls, on her show last night. And she wanted to know, because the Democrats wouldn't stand and honor them. The Democrats wouldn't pray for them. The Democrats wouldn't stand and say, oh, you shouldn't have to go through that. You shouldn't have to suffer from our policies. Your little girls would be here if it weren't for our liberal immigration policies. They couldn't do that. Instead, they sat on their hands. And Laura Ingraham had a question for the father.
I want to ask you both what it felt like to find out that so many people in the room, they're mostly Democrats, did not stand up when you were recognized and when your daughter was recognized last night.
Well, I felt it was very disrespectful. For the simple fact, the Democrats who was there who did not stand up, they were African Americans. So that hurts me a lot, to show that they did not have the respect or to honor what just happened to our lives and to America's lives. And it's not right. Regardless of how they feel about the president, they should show the respect, because I would show them the respect if that was their loved one.
You have to understand, Mr. Mickens, that the Democrat Party places their electoral futures above the lives of your daughter and your daughter's friend. The Democrat Party doesn't care about your daughter. You folks in the black community, Democrat Party doesn't care about you. They care about illegal aliens and getting them into this country. Now, whether they let in MS-13 and all the criminal element, they don't care. They don't care. If a few of your children have to die, it's perfectly acceptable, so long as they can bring in illegal aliens from all over the globe and then convert them to Democrat voters. That's what matters. To the point to where they wouldn't even have the humanity to stand and honor you for the loss you endured because of their liberal policies. By the way, this isn't just congressional Democrats. Lindsey Graham is equally guilty. Chuck Toomer, equally guilty. Give me another amnesty Republican. John Kasich, Jeb Bush, equally guilty. Equally guilty for turning a blind eye. But what Joy Reid did on MSNBS when she saw this story, this really takes the cake. This is the pride of MSNBS, folks.
And then he gives a speech tonight in which he makes it sound like the biggest issue in the United States, the biggest threat is MS-13, a gang nobody that doesn't watch Fox News has ever heard of. So he makes it sound like they're the biggest threat.
Why does he do it?
Because he's playing to the audience that he wants applause from. And the audience on the right just wants to hear that.
I've known about MS-13 going on 2 decades. Just because Joy Reid has her head buried so far up her rear end doesn't mean the rest of the country's that stupid. Number one. Number two, she spat on the graves of these little girls. Amazing. This is what MSNBS does, folks. Back in a minute. The Salcedo Show on The Voice.
And then he gives a speech tonight in which he makes it sound like the biggest issue in the United States, the biggest threat is MS-13, a gang nobody that doesn't watch Fox News has ever heard of. So he makes it sound like they're the biggest threat.
Why does he do it?
Because he's playing to the audience that he wants applause from. And the audience on the right just wants to hear that.
Yeah, we just want to hear that. We want to hear that our government understands that our people are dying, regardless of their skin color, at the hands of illegal aliens, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop. Now, Joy Reid admitted a couple of things there. This is what we've known about Joy Reid. That woman is criminally stupid. I mean, criminally stupid. I mean, I know individuals who don't keep track of news or politics, and they've heard of MS-13. Who hasn't heard of MS-13? Apparently, MSNBS doesn't. They have no idea who MS-13 is. For those of you out there who watch CNN and watch MSNBS, who apparently don't know, it's a ruthless, cutthroat, bloodthirsty gang made up of illegal aliens that the federal government of the United States allowed to come into America and plague our streets because it refuses to stop illegal immigration. That's who they are. That's what they do. And in this case, they took out 2 innocent little black girls. And their parents showed up. They were honored to be invited by the President of the United States to give voice for them. And you know what's important here is that the Democrats wanted to make sure that those parents didn't have a voice. Hey, Sheila Jackson Lee, where were you giving that black family voice? Where were you? Nowhere. It took Donald Trump to give the families who have had their loved ones slaughtered by illegal aliens to give them voice. And it's not just one family, folks. The Remembrance Project makes its mission to travel all over the country and console and give voice to people who have had their loved ones, thousands upon thousands of Americans who have had their loved ones killed because Congress doesn't want to secure that border. And because Congress doesn't want illegal aliens to stop flowing into this country. And that's the truth. I don't care which way you spin it. It's the truth. There is no good cop down there at the border saying, oh, you're a good illegal alien. Oh, you're a bad illegal alien. You can't come in. Nobody's doing that. It's just a free-for-all. Everybody gets to come in. The good people looking for work, the good people who just want to send money home. And yes, the criminal aliens are flowing through that border. And they're coming over here and they're doing crimes. They're getting deported and they're coming back. Why? Because the dang border is an open sieve. And liberals, not the Democrats, liberals make sure that continues. Because there are liberals on the Republican side who are doing this as well. Chamber of Commerce types. Again, I'm not going to sugarcoat this for anybody. The reason why American citizens are losing their children and losing their family members to illegal aliens who shouldn't even be here is because the Chamber of Commerce wants cheap labor and the Democrats want their future electoral prospects in this country. And that's why your family members are having to die. And I would ask the mayor of Houston, his name just Mayor Turner, flew out of my head for a second. How many Americans are acceptable for you to die at the hands of illegal aliens before you stand up and do something, sir? In your sanctuary city. Let me ask the city council of Houston. How many of you are willing to sacrifice all of your communities, black communities, Hispanic communities, and white communities in the city of Houston just so you can be welcoming? How many Americans are acceptable to die? Because I can guarantee you, with your open border advocacy and then rolling out the red carpet in your cities, you're inviting the criminal element to come on in. And that's exactly what they're doing. These MS-13 gang members were placed in these little girls' high school. Because American taxpayers are on the hook to pay for the education of anybody who's here, so long as they get across that border, whether they're legal or illegal, because of a stupid Plyler versus Doe court case. You're on the hook. And progressive liberals make sure you continue to be on the hook. Now, would Mayor Turner's family be under threat from illegal alien felons? No. No. They get protected. Would Mayor Mike Rawlings of Dallas, was his family be under threat from illegal alien felons? No. Lindsey Graham, Bob Corker, Susan Collins, Nancy Pelosi, Dick Durbin, Chuck Toomer. No. They're all protected. It's you and I who must pay the price for them, for their schemes and their little agenda. And then you get Joy Reid, again, a criminally stupid woman, jumps on MSNBS. Nobody's ever heard of MS-13. Who's MS-13? I've had my head so far up my rear end, I don't know. The right wing wants to hear about this. Yes, we would like to hear that our government will stop sacrificing our citizens so they can have illegal immigration. Yes, Joy Reid, we'd like to hear that. And certainly the liberal extremists you support, madam, will never do that. Many in the Republican Party will never do that. It's taken one man, Donald Trump, to change the conversation. This Joy Reid person spat on the graves of those little girls so she could take a swipe at Donald Trump. Doesn't that tell you the kind of sick, twisted, I'm trying to think of a strong adjective I can say without getting in trouble with the FCC. Dark-hearted, lack of character person that MSNBS employs in Joy Reid. I mean, what a joke. Your liberty-loving Latino, feel sad for these parents. I want to do something so that no parent will ever have to go through this again. Let me give you guys a little feedback on the Facebook page. If you guys want to join it, there's a progressive liberal who jumps on my page. His name's John Ross. And this is what he said to me when I called out Joy Reid for spitting on the graves of these poor black kids who are the victims of MS-13. Here's what he said. You can leave my people, he's black apparently, you can leave my people out of your blood feud with liberals. You race bait like they do. Race bait? What is he talking about? You defend Trump's racism and now you're going to act sanctimonious? Give me a break. I mean, I don't know what to say to that, folks. I guess stupidity is catching. First Joy Reid, now this John Ross guy. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Hood, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. What's going on?
Good morning. I hope you caught that post that I left on your page yesterday. Did you catch it?
Which one?
That Joe Kennedy III was giving a speech and a nice sedan was behind him. Can you say check?
Oh, yeah. I saw that. Okay. Because there was a couple I thought you sent me, but maybe the other ones were somebody else. There was also a picture of Alfred E. Newman with drool going down his side of his mouth. And they were saying, hey, look, it's Joe Kennedy. Folks, it was chapstick, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't drool as some people had reported. But go ahead, Hood. What's going on?
I don't want to say how I know, but I know Ted Cruz is going to try to primary Trump. I think that's going to happen.
How do you know that?
I just know.
Okay.
And he's raising money, and
well, he is running for Senate. You know, he's raising money to run for Senate.
Yeah. But I just know. I don't want to say how I know, but I just know.
Okay.
And,
all right.
And I'm not just shooting in the dark here. It's not.
Well, who knows? You know, maybe Trump, after 4 years, says, you know what, my work is done here. And maybe Trump will turn around and say, you know what, my heir apparent, a guy who I've built up a close relationship with, is Ted Cruz.
But I hope that's true.
Me too.
Because it
wouldn't be the worst thing. I mean, I could also, if we continue on this road though, Hood, I could handle 8 years of Trump with all this conservatism that's happening. I can handle that. All this law and order, I can handle that. But go ahead.
let's remember, folks, all these Republicans that are leaving the House and the Senate because there's concern about the midterms.
Right.
If, God forbid, we lose the House or the Senate, they are going to impeach Donald Trump, or they are going to attempt to do it.
They're going to try it. I know. And you know what? And Hood, you're right. And that's the number one reason, making sure that these seats, by the way, Trey Gowdy, the latest, to head on out of Dodge. He's been signaling he was going to do this for a long time. He says he's going to get back in the justice system. Can I suggest to Donald Trump that perhaps, I just think Attorney General Trey Gowdy has a really good ring to it. Back in a minute, the Chris Salcedo Show on The Voice. One 558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Coming up, folks, there is a judge, a left-wing Obama appointee, who just made up rights for illegal aliens. We'll get to that story coming up. In the meantime, it's time for the international man of mystery. We call him the Desmond. Calling in on AM 700 KSEV, the voice of Texas, and the Chris Salcedo Show. What's happening, my friend?
Morning, Chris. That lady who called in, Teresa?
Yes.
She's a friend of mine.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She and her daughter are very, very big into equestrian events. So if you like horseshoes, she's the girl for you.
Well, and she happens to be smarter than Joy Reid.
Yeah, she's also a friend of Sarah Davis, but I'm not going to mention that. MS-13. Both of my boys went to Bel Air High School.
Yes.
And let's see, Philip is 25, Duncan's 30.
Right.
So, and they had MS-13 there. I mean, quite frankly, and racist comment coming up, so beware, Russell. The amount of, the number of whites at Bel Air is very, very small.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not racist to point out actual demographics.
Yeah, and of course it's the Asians who are beating the pants off of everybody academically.
Well, I mean, you got to look at the culture. The cultural influence on people is incredibly important. That's why we think the American culture is something that's worth fighting for. A drive for excellence, a free market. That we were the genesis of this. So,
yeah, and guess what? It's the Asians who are emulating us.
Well, that's a fair point. That the Chinese government. The reason why the government experiments with capitalism, and that's why their economic fortunes have been buoyed over the last decades or so. As we experiment with socialism, our economic fortunes dim. There's a correlation there.
Yep. Well, I got to get to work.
Well, yes, you have a fine day, and I won't hold the fact that your friend is friend with Sarah Davis against her. I promise. Thank you, buddy. As you all know, the Desmond is a huge fan of Sarah Davis. About that, I was emailing back and forth with Desmond and basically saying, I can hardly wait until the primaries are over so you and I can get back to agreeing on more things. And there was an amen from both sides. Look, there are going to be people who take conservatism and betrayal a little bit more to heart. I'm one of these guys that if you advertise yourself as one thing and you don't follow through, it's worse. And I told you guys the story about Obama, how I felt snookered, how I actually bought in, because I was in a newsroom the night Obama was elected, and there were friends of mine who were black who were crying. You can't be in a situation like that and not feel the enormity of what had happened with his election. Now that, for me, quickly faded, but I actually dared to believe for a moment the rhetoric of President Obama. And then left-wing extremism, anti-American craziness flowed from that administration. And I'll tell you what, my disdain for Barack Obama would have been far more tempered if I had not allowed myself for the briefest of moments to believe in him. So too with the Republican brand in the state of Texas. You know, I call myself a conservative, not a Republican. And I'm hearing from block walkers out there that when people are knocking on the doors, hey, support so-and-so, the questions are being asked by all of you. Well, is this person a Republican or are they a conservative? Because people like Dan Huberty and Joe Strauss and Sarah Davis signal there's a difference. You can be a Republican and not be a conservative. And those three emulate that in spades. As a matter of fact, there's very little difference between Dan Huberty, Sarah Davis, and Joe Strauss and the Democrat Party in this state. Hell, the Democrat Party up in Washington, D.C., very little difference. I mean, Sarah Davis cheerleads for abortion. Major cheerleader for abortion. On so many issues, you can't tell Wendy Davis from Sarah Davis and vice versa. I take it personally because she advertises herself as a Republican. So, and I know that many of you feel that betrayal too. And it's not just her. I mean, Joe Strauss is the king of betrayal. The king of dagger being plunged squarely in the back of conservatives. In the vein of John McCain, in the vein of Susan Collins, Olympia Snowe. You guys know the type I'm talking about. It's more important for them to be liked in their social circles of liberal progressives than it is to stand up for any values. And if you value abortion, sorry, you're not for me. I think abortion is filthy. I think abortion is reprehensible. I think abortion is sick. 99.9% of the time. There is a small fraction of the time where I can see the procedure when it comes to, up for debate anyway, when it comes to the life of the mom or when it comes to victims of crime. I can see where the debate comes in there. But abortion on demand because you were irresponsible and didn't act like an adult undertaking an adult activity? No. And I can never find common ground with a legislator who says, rah, 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 abortion. Abortion's for me. And then adds insult to injury to the conservative movement by inviting Planned Parenthood into her district. Into her district. They look, Planned Parenthood hoists Sarah Davis. Yeah, right. I have to catch myself because sometimes did I say Wendy or did I say Sarah? I honestly, folks, this is the two are so similar in what they advocate. I have to catch myself. That they advertise that she's the only good Republican that they really can get behind. The butcher shop. The same people who sold aborted baby body parts for profit. They back Sarah Davis. I would never be in the company of the butcher shop. Never. So and look, there are those out there who are big fans of hers. Many of them on the progressive left. I get it. I understand. If there was somebody calling themselves a Republican doing left-wing extremism in the name of republicanism, if I were a left-winger, I'd be a fan too. I as a conservative can't go there. I just can't. Not accountable to their party, not accountable to a standard. Fine. If that's how you want to conduct yourself, that's groovy. I don't have to buy into it and won't. So anyway, it's a point of contention, not a contention, because, you know, I will say this. My love for the Desmond and for Laura Hill transcends my disdain for Sarah Davis. They can support her all they want, and I'm going to love them no matter what. Unlike the Democrats, they hate Donald Trump so much that they will screw their own constituents to stick it in Donald Trump's eye. So I am not going to be them. Let me tell you guys the headline as we go to break. Judge rules illegals have constitutional right to say goodbye to a family. Now let that sink in for a minute. A judge, Obama judge, rules illegals have a constitutional right to say goodbye to their families when they're being deported. You know, it's right there, right after freedom of speech and religion. It's the freedom to say goodbye if you're an illegal alien. It's right there in the Constitution. Did you know? This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is a pure fabrication of rights that don't exist. But that's what the other side does. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Your calls and that story up next.
FBI's argument is ridiculous. For one thing, they've shifted the argument. They used to say it was sources and methods. Now they're saying basically it would be material embarrassing to us. This is the Colonel Jessup argument from A Few Good Men. The American people can't handle the truth.
That's Will McGurn. I think I've got that soundbite somewhere. You can't handle the truth. Hold on a minute. I've got it. Let me see if I can find that somewhere. But he's absolutely right. You can't handle the truth. Well, then there's that. Nice work. You had that right there. One more time. You can't handle the truth. He's right. The Colonel Jessup argument. The FBI is saying that your faith in the FBI and DOJ, if you knew the truth, would be so shaken, would be so rocked, it would be bad for the country. That seems to be the argument they're making. So let Obama get away with what he did. Let the Obamaites get away with what they did. Let them get away with what we believe happened was rigging an American election so you can save the country. That's their argument. And I'm thinking to myself, you got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. McGurn continued.
I think people need to see. We have two big questions over all this. Did Donald Trump collude with the Russians to steal the election in 2016? And did the FBI and DOJ put their fingers on the scale? Now remember, this is also Christopher Wray in his testimony for confirmation spoke about how he couldn't give Congress information because it was classified. This gets us backwards. You know, the FBI is accountable to we the people through the Congress, not the other way around.
See, and I think there are many people inside, especially those appointed by Democrats, who think that we have to bend to them, not them bend to us. Somebody I used to work for, Glenn Beck, said very pointedly, we outnumber them. We outnumber them. The American people want accountability, Christopher Wray. The American people have it on pretty good authority that the previous administration violated our constitutional rights in an effort to rig an American election. We have it on pretty good authority that it was indeed the Democrats who were conspiring with the Russians, not the other way around. That the Republicans were conspiring. I think we have to see this memo. I really do. What do you guys think? 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Mike, thank you for waiting. Appreciate it.
posited that Trey Gowdy might be a good attorney general.
I think
I
that'd
don't
be good.
think so.
Why not?
Well, for one thing, it took him so long to drawl his way through the Benghazi stuff, nothing happened.
Well, it doesn't
Not
mean
one thing.
Well, maybe he didn't find anything
Well,
that was
with
actionable.
Hillary there, and all, he didn't find anything?
Well, that was actionable. I mean, a politician lying to the American people, that's not illegal.
Well, I would sooner see Louis Gohmert as AG. That guy is tenacious.
Yeah.
He has a nice drawl.
Legal
from
background.
Texas.
He was a judge.
Yeah.
I wouldn't object to that. I think Trey Gowdy is very methodical and he's no nonsense. I still trust him, Mike. I really do.
Here's one last thing.
Yeah.
Mark Levin has no use for him. He says this fellow is very ineffective.
You think so? Well,
Yep.
all right.
So,
Thank
since he agreed with me, I had to go along with that.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. And who am I to dispute the great one? Mac, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. I'm happy you've tuned in.
Hey, thank you for taking my call. I've been struggling with this, and this is on the topic of immigration. I wanted to hear your thoughts. I'm a devout Christian, and I just wanted to sit there and put this to you. I understand the virtues of a merit-based system versus family reunification, but as a pro-family Christian, shouldn't we be, for legal immigrants, shouldn't we be encouraging families to come over and to be unified on this topic? I'll shut up and listen. I just wanted to hear your thoughts because it's been a struggle for all of us.
Right. Well, hold on a minute. Before you go, I want to define some terms here. So you're saying that somebody who's been allowed to come in already,
legally, yeah.
somebody that's legally here, right, to be able to now. I think Donald Trump's restriction on those who he could bring in to spouse and minor children is a logical. I mean, only the nuclear family. You don't need to bring in second, third, fourth cousins, grandma, and then her second, third, and fourth cousins, and then their grandmas, and then their grandpas, and then their cousins twice removed. That ought not be allowed. The idea of bringing in the nuclear family, I think, is where Trump has landed, and I think it's a very good place to be.
All right, so if I understood you right, then you're saying that the president's posture on keeping it to immediate family, you're good with, just not extended, which is, I think, one of the questions.
Yeah, not the extended family, not the chain migration issue. And if you're here illegally, you have no rights. If you're here illegally, you have no ability to stay. You will stay or go depending on what the country decides to do with you once that border is secure.
Okay, well, thank you for the time, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Well, that was interesting. That was very, Mac, thank you very much for the cordial discussion. Jose, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. I'm glad you tuned in.
Hello, Chris. I know my conversations sometimes are boring, but let's step back and look at the big picture.
Who told you your conversations are boring?
Well, I think sometimes they are, but
they're not boring. If you were boring, I wouldn't have you on the air more than 30 seconds. But so go ahead.
Okay.
What's on your mind?
This is the big picture. What the FBI and the DOJ are arguing is that not that crimes didn't happen or that malfeasance didn't happen. They're asking not to be held accountable, and that's the big picture. I want to present. That the president said that the government is responsible and accountable to the people. In civil society dictates that you should and will be held accountable for your actions and your malfeasance. If that doesn't happen, civil society will cease to exist. That is what keeps a civil society alive and well and healthy. And the big picture is for example, the illegal immigration subject. There's got to be some accountability on behalf of the people that did this. If no accountability, if they're not held accountable, and they're asking not to be held accountable.
Well, I can tell you who's
culture.
Well, hold on. As far as accountability on illegal immigration, all you need to do is look at Capitol Hill and the presidency over the last 4 or 5 decades. They are the ones who are exclusively responsible for securing that border, and they have not done it.
Well, yeah,
period.
Exactly.
Period.
And it covers this. What I'm talking about is the accountability factor covers everything from the movement of
well, let's circle back to let's circle back to the memo, because I think this is what I think you've made some very good points. That and this is what the FBI, in their effort to cover up their bad actions, and the DOJ in an effort to cover up their bad actions, what they're missing is that they've already lost the faith of the American people. It's going to take the truth and people being held accountable for doing these things that is going to restore the faith that we have in those institutions. And I said it about immigration too, Jose, that the only way that the American people will forgive 535 individuals in Congress and whichever president happens to be in that, and in short, the government, the only way the American people will forgive them for betraying every citizen on illegal immigration is for an admission that we have been working against the wishes of the American people by allowing illegal immigration. We are sorry, and we are going to stop it. Illegal immigration stops, and we're going to reform legal immigration. And that's the transparency is the only way to earn back the trust. The only reason why Donald Trump was elected, I believe, well, the primary reason he was elected was because he said, the American people have been betrayed, and I will not betray you on the immigration issue. And the majority of Americans said, yes, let's do this, because they want accountability.
But I want to emphasize the big picture. That our culture is going to be. They're not saying, again. Their argument is not that they're saying not that they didn't do anything wrong or that they're being railroaded. They're saying that they're not actually arguing the fact that crimes and malfeasance was committed by these departments that are supposed to be accountable. They're saying don't hold us accountable for it.
You're absolutely right.
I've stated this several times. I've often wondered, why do the people look to Congress as a moral compass? And that question bothered me for a long time.
Jose, I haven't looked at Congress as a moral compass for the last decade. Thank you for the call, buddy. I appreciate it. 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV. Not boring. Good points. If you have something to add to this discussion, whether it be illegal immigration or what's going on with this memo, it could come out today, folks. More from Buck Sexton next on the Chris Salcedo Show. And that's going to do it here for the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide on the Vida television network. I want to remind everyone that I think I'm one of the few individuals on television who actually allows you to directly interact with me, unfiltered, live. All you got to do is call AM 700 KSEV 281-558-5738, 281-558-KSEV from the hours of 7:30 a.m. Eastern until 10 o'clock Eastern, and let your voice be heard. Maybe you don't think we covered something fairly, or maybe you don't think we've covered something enough. It's your chance to weigh in. You can also do so via social media. Go to chrissalcedo.com. All of our contact information is there, or you can do it live in real time during those same hours at Chris Salcedo TX. Even off hours, we respond to Twitter, and it's a good chance, if you make a compelling argument, it'll be featured on the show, if I'm not on the air at the time, the following day. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Chris Salcedo Show worldwide here on the Vida television network. We'll see you next time.